Hello, everyone. I am Charlotte Tweed, relocation strategist and founder of Liberty Travel Coach, and welcome to Free Thinkers Rising. And in this conversation, I have with me Alex Voss with the Free Cities Foundation, and I got to know Alex from when he was writing articles for the magazine that I was a managing editor for. So we've known each other for a couple years, and that's where I also was introduced to the Free Cities Foundation and fell in love with their work and what they're doing and the concepts and have been following them ever since and connected with people in the organization. So Alex, welcome, and please introduce yourself and tell us about Free Cities.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charlotte. It's great to be here. My name is Alex Voss. I am the CFO of a company called TIPOLIS and also a board member at the Free Cities Foundation. My background is really finance and economics, and I try to play that role in this whole new market of living together or jurisdictional arbitrage, and that's my really key focus.
Great. Now, in some of the other conversations that I've had with people, we've covered some of the projects that are intentional communities, special economic zones. So I've talked with Joyce Brand and we've talked about Ciudad Morazan and Joey Langenbrunner about Prospera, touched a little bit on Penedesho. We'll be speaking about Lieberstadt. There's so many interesting projects out there. Are there some projects that you are able to shed some light on or fill us in on that you're working with?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think you mentioned some of the key ones. And the Free Cities Foundation is a very broad organization. It tries to be, a team player for all of these different projects that are coming up that span all the way from, the intentional community side up to highly autonomous special economic zones like Prospera. I think, a couple other ones that I work with that are very important to the space. One would be Autris, which is I would say probably fits in the intentional community or de facto freedom camp. It's a real estate developer in Latin America, focusing largely in Panama and Costa Rica. But there's also another company that I work with called Tipolis, which is building very advanced special economic zones that have high degrees of autonomy or internal focused autonomy. We have a number of conversations going on with a number of different governments at the moment. The key one that is public at the moment is the government of Brunei, which is a small sultanate in East Asia, not so far from Singapore, that we're in deep talks with about partnering to try to bring one of these projects to their country.
So can you give us an overview of what a free city would look like? This may be a concept that some people have never heard of that are listening to this conversation.
Sure. So free city, I mean, it's a pretty big term. It's a pretty broad tent. So they can look quite different, and that's one of the beauties of the model is that it can be applied in a number of different places. Some of the key tenets for a free city would be typically it is taking many of the facets of special economic zones, so different rules, different regulations, different tax rates, these sorts of things within a defined area. And the reason for this is that you do this as a host country in order to attract investment, both foreign direct investment, but also residents, individuals that are going to come and want to take advantage of that legal regime in order to best, match it to their needs and their life. Our particular preferred model of free city is something called a free private city. My boss and coworker Titus Gebel really came up with this concept. He's a lawyer by training, and if you read his book, you'll notice that it is a very sort of technically legal way of viewing the market for living together. One of the key facets I like about the free private city is actually that it's a city run by a for-profit operator, and that for-profit company actually enters a real contract with every resident that comes to the city, be that a company or an individual natural person. And this contract is actually what defines your relationship, both what both sides are owed and owe. You have to pay X, and you're promised that we, as the city operator, will provide, A, B, and C, that sort of thing. We really like this because this defines the relationship between governance and the group that needs governing, rather than being a sort of top-down hierarchical, I govern you and you must do what I say type of relationship. We don't like that sort of authoritarianism, and think that this is a much more sort of mutual respect building framework to live together.
And I think governments have gotten a little bit turned around. They're supposed to be our servants, and it's not operating that way anymore. They are now telling us what to do, what to inject in our bodies, how to live, what taxes we have to pay. And through all the things that have happened over the last few years, I mean, I used to be a very strong believer in democracy, and I don't think it's really what people think it is anymore. Honestly don't think people even know what the word democracy means anymore. It's really just 50 plus one.
Yep.
So, and
Yep.
is it even 50 plus one? I say this about Canada because 51% of the people did not vote in Justin Trudeau, and they have not voted in Mark Carney.
Yep.
So the rest of the people are forced into that system and have to follow along with coercion. And that's why I love so much what you guys do in your model, because with the contracts that you mentioned, you know what you're getting into. It cannot be changed without both sides' permission, is my
Yep.
understanding. So
Yep.
it is a much more fair level of governance.
Well, I mean, we look at democracy. I mean, I agree with you. I'm not sure most people know what it means. In general, in the United States, it's used as all things that are good and righteous,
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with necessarily like, popular support for things like that. And, an important point to make is like, we don't think right now, at least, that it's something that we need democracy for to decide what sort of cereal we eat in the morning. This is provided by the market. And our point is really just that the market can also provide differing level of governance services. We don't have to vote on it. Actually, everyone can kind of get what they want if we allow competition.
Now, you had mentioned Otris and Panama and Costa Rica. I know Costa Rica has a big draw for people, as well as Panama. They're two very different countries. Everyone is. Did you want to speak a little bit more about what's going on in Otris? Like, because I know I'm looking for solutions right now, and not all of
Yeah.
them are available right now, but for where can people move now? Where can they
Yeah.
go?
No, this is a great question, and it's why I also work with Autris in addition to TIPOLIS. I love the TIPOLIS vision, but it is a long slog to set up these sorts of projects. It's very difficult, and we do not have an actual live project where people can move to tomorrow. I hope that changes soon. In the
Yeah.
meantime, I've worked with my good friends at Autris, in particular Patrick Hebert, the founder and CEO, for quite some time. And the reason why we work together is we're both rowing towards the same ultimate goal. But Autris is able to build communities in the here and now and take advantage of what freedom already exists in certain places. The reason they've chosen Panama and Costa Rica, the reason why they're looking at places like Argentina and El Salvador, is because freedom already exists in those places to a very large degree. There's the ability to, particularly under the Autris model, which is very much developing off-grid luxury but sustainable off-grid communities. They're providing things like their own power, their own water, even their own food. They have tilapia ponds and fruit tree, grocery store looking fruit trees. You just walk through the little lanes and you can pick out fruit from whichever, tree you want. All of these sorts of things are arranged in Autris communities. They don't have legal autonomy, but because they provide everything internally, and because they're in Latin America, which is pretty largely a live and let live type of society, they have a lot of de facto freedom, and that's very attractive to a lot of people.
Now, I know, like you said, they're built more on the luxury model, and not everybody is looking for luxury. They may be looking for I just want a simple life, intentional community, be with like-minded people. Are there any other projects that you're aware of that offer a little more, I don't want to say, yeah, a more into just, it doesn't have to be luxury necessarily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Autris also does offer this within its portfolio. I mean, of course, there is the ability to have super luxury. The more maybe technically accurate way to say it is it's very high quality. But
Mhm.
of course, you can have in fact, Autris really started with this whole tiny home development focus, and so you can find very affordable options to live in these sorts of communities, but they're going to be very highly built, which is why we get a lot of repeat customers. That would be certainly the main one that I'm aware of. I know there are others that are trying to do similar things. We are constantly approached at Autris, for advice on these sorts of things and how to execute it. Not sure that we've mastered it enough to to fully do that. We're still learning ourselves. But that would be the main thing I would point to. Autris does have a community in Nicaragua, which just by the sort of nature of that country being a bit more affordable, the homes there are slightly more affordable than they are in Panama, which is slightly more affordable than things are in Costa Rica. Of course,
Mhm.
the country you're in and the relative cost of living is one component, in terms of the price point that we can offer.
Yes, and cost of living is all relative. It
Yep.
really depends on what lifestyle you're looking for. I can say Mexico's affordable. Monteverde is even cheaper than Mexico,
Yep.
surprisingly, because housing prices are going up. But it's what do you want for a house? What do you eat? What do you want to go out and do? So cost of living is all relative, and I always encourage people to go and see it for yourselves and experience it because kind of what everybody tells you about the country's wrong until you get there and see it yourself.
I mean, this is consistently the case. If you look at, I'm an American, and if you look at like the State Department's advisory warnings on where to go and where not to go, yeah, I mean, it's not wrong 100% of the time, but it's wrong quite consistently in terms of what's safe and what's not, and what's interesting and what's not, that sort of thing.
Yes, yes, I agree. Now, not everybody necessarily wants to leave their country, and the United States is a big country. Canada is a big country. Are there projects or cities within the United States, if there's people looking to leave their state? I'll give an example of California. I know people who are, I got to get out of California, clients I got to get out of California, but I
Yep.
don't have to leave the United States of America. Where can I go? Do you have
Yep.
any examples that would be a
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this exists quite a bit in the United States, which is why the United States retains a higher degree of freedom than many other countries, such as Canada. It's because it is relatively decentralized. Now, it's not as decentralized as I would like, but it is more so than many others. You see this largely, people moving from California to Texas all the time, people moving from New York down to Florida all the time. One other option that I've seen, particularly because I'm a Midwesterner, and it may sort of not be on the maps of many people, um, is Carmel, Indiana. Now you might say, why would you move to Indiana? And okay, fair enough. But I was living in Chicago. I was from Cincinnati, Ohio. Then I moved up to Chicago for school, and I spent about 15 years there. And I thought, this is not the place that I want to raise a family. This is not a place that I want to buy property and then be taxed, forever into the future for, and to subsidize all kinds of things that I don't support. So I wanted to leave. But my family is all based in the Midwest. I have a sister with two young kids and a third on the way nearby. I don't want to go, even to Florida where it requires a plane ride. I wanted to be within a driving distance of that. And so I looked in Indiana and I chose to live for a year or two in Carmel, Indiana. And the reason I chose Carmel is, and I have a nice article about this on the Free Cities Foundation website. Uh, it's a very cohesive environment. It is creating an environment that is attractive to human beings that are living in on a human scale, of course, as we all are. It has got walkable, stores and coffee shops and restaurants. There is a nice area for kids to play outside. So every day, I would joke that, Carmel is the place where there's no wrong in the world. The dads are all out largely making pretty good salaries, and the moms are at home with two or three kids. The kids are playing ping pong and riding the balance beam and whatever else they're doing on the little walking trail all day long. And these toys are always put back in exactly where they're supposed to go. It's just a really hospitable environment to raise a family. And so I would encourage people to look, in these sorts of locations, particularly as more and more work can be done online. There is a much lower need to be in massive cities. Now, this has not gone away completely, but where possible, I think this is a great arbitrage to get more value and have a higher quality of life relative to cost of living, even within the US.
Hmm. And what about New Hampshire? I hear about the Free State Project in New Hampshire. Can you share about that?
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a free stater. I've only been to New Hampshire a handful of times, but I know that this is a project that's existed now for, I think, coming up on 2 decades, where a group of libertarians in the United States basically came together and said, we're going to try to move in mass to one jurisdiction and use that voting support in our democracy to basically change the scope of governance in an area. And I think, there's been some challenges to it. It's always, I think one of the things that the Free State found out is that it's very, very difficult to get people to move in mass. Even if
Mm.
you had 10,000 people signed up that said that they would do it, I'm just making this up, but something like 5% actually did. And I think that's just the truth of human nature. That's no problem. But on the other hand, they've had massive successes in other ways. I mean, they're probably not going to change the scope of the world, but they are really improving the life of people that are living there. They, in fact, lowered the budget of New Hampshire by about 10%, not lowered the rate of increase, which is what the rest of the United States says we lowered the budget if we just lowered the rate of increase. They actually lowered it by 10% a couple of years ago, and I think they've continued to do similar things. So this is a very, impressive uh, outcome, in my opinion. Now, New Hampshire is challenging, at least in my perspective, from being very cold and being surrounded by a bunch of states that are, in my view, quite hostile towards them, and it's not the place that I would most like to go. But that's just my own take on it. I don't, it can be the right place for many people.
So we'll hop back to Prospera for a minute and the Free City project that's going on there because it is an operational free city that has been quite successful, I do believe, in
Mhm.
Honduras. And if people want to see this city in operation, they can because the Free Cities Conference will be there this September.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so the Free Cities Foundation each year puts on a conference. Typically, it is, I think for the last 4 years, we've held it in Prague. Our team is largely European. Prague is a very beautiful city, has a lot of history that we can apply towards modern day, and so we've held it in Prague for that reason. But a lot of the feedback we get is, well, hey, we're talking about free cities. Why don't we go to a free city? And so this year, the Free Cities Foundation has made the decision to try to do that. And so we will be there from September 3rd to September 6th in Prospera, working with their team to host what we think of is the largest gathering in a free city in history. So that should be a big thing that you can participate in. We will definitely sell out. There's not infinite room. And so we will definitely sell out and hope that you can be part of it too.
I want to be a part of that history.
Me too. This is going to be cool.
Yeah, yeah, I want to be there. And are they still doing tours to Ciudad Marzan as well? So people can
Yes,
see
they
that. I know
are.
they're two very different locations, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't believe that there may be official things coming on that. I don't know for sure. But I would recommend that while you're there, it would be a great time to go visit Ciudad Morazán as well. Ciudad Morazán is, like you say, wildly different than Prospera. Nonetheless, it is still under the same legal framework and still a full ZA, as they call them. Um, it's a very cool project that is completely sold out, targeting different group of people. You probably all heard from Joyce as well, but a very cool project from our perspective. And while you're there, it's just one short flight from Roatan, the island right north of Honduras, of mainland Honduras, just into San Pedro Sula, and a short drive over, and you can visit it as well. I believe there will be tours set up. I just don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. So Alex, as we wrap up our conversation, what would you say is one actionable step that a person can take today to find their community?
I think that this is really a function of taking ownership of your life. And that can look a lot of different directions. I mean, myself, I ended up in this space really out of pure happenstance. I read my boss's book, Free Private Cities, and I was working in investment banking in Chicago. It had nothing to do with Liberty. It was just a good finance job. And I read the book and I reached out to him and I said, I really like this book. Let me know if there's anything I can ever do to help you instantiate this in the real world. And we didn't talk again for 2 years. And then he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm starting a company. Would you like to come on board?" And it turns out we work very well together, and the relationship grew over time. And next thing you know, I've been in the space now for coming up on 7 years, and very much tied at the hip with Tita Skebbel, one of the big names in the space. So I would say, take obviously my recommendation is not that that will exactly work out for everyone, but in principle, this only happened because I read the book and reached out to him and was like, hey, let's see what we can do. And I would encourage everyone to do that. It can be online in the first instance, but really take a proactive life. And there's especially no reason not to with AI tools and everything like that that we have. Really, your life is in your hands, and you can seize the day, and you can basically do whatever you want. You just have to work hard towards it.
Yes, just take a step. Don't let the fear
That's
freeze you,
right.
because fear does freeze you, and action is the way that you're going to break out of that.
That's right.
So, is there anything else you'd like to share, Alex? Something I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Well, the question that I get about when is a new project coming, I don't have a great answer for, but I think soon. I know I'm a broken record on that. We're pushing very, very hard on a number of different projects. And I think in general, the way I see this industry evolving over time is, Prospera took something like a decade to get set up. It's just extraordinarily difficult to try to get these legally autonomous arrangements set up. We've seen new projects come up, and the sales cycle for them is closer to 4 or 5 years. We're trying to bring that down shorter and shorter. But after there's a number of successful models, we do think that this is going to expand quite quickly. And it's not going to be like you choose between living in Honduras or in Brunei. Those are two good options, but we also think that there's going to be dozens more, so that it's a lot more to offer for a lot of different people to have, something that fits better tailored to what they would like. We're probably a decade or so away from that, but it is coming.
In the meantime, there are some other options that people can
That's
look
right.
at. Yeah.
That's right.
So, where else can people find out more information about you, about Free Cities, about TIPOLIS, the projects?
Yeah, you can find out about TIPOLIS at tipolis.com. That's TIPOLS .com. You can find out about Free Cities and the conference at the Free Cities Foundation website. That's free-cities.org. And then you can find me on Twitter at Alex D. Voss. Those would probably be the three best ways to follow on with this. And I guess I should also mention the Autris website, which is autrisgroup.com, AUTRIS group.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alex. I really appreciate it and support all the work that you guys do.
Thanks for having me, Charlotte.